Heather here. Today I wanted to talk about my hike in Spain, the Camino de Santiago, and why I decided to go on that hike and what it was for me. So I had went on a plant medicine journey, and during my plant medicine journey healing, I had gotten visions and of what my life would be like, I guess. And then part of the plant medicine journey, I had to get off all pharmaceuticals long enough to do it. And I decided after plant medicine to not go back on all of my pharmaceuticals. So I was kind of healing my body of all of that. And it's wild how I ended up there. One of my movers mentioned the Camino de Santiago, and I said, what is that? And he said, well, it's a spiritual path and it sounds like something that you would like. There's a book and a movie on it. And so I thought about it. I bought the book and I watched the movie, and I thought, maybe I do need this. And one day I was in an Uber on my way to the airport going somewhere, I don't even know where, and I saw the word Spain written on a train going by. Actually, I think it was on a bridge that the train was going under. But nonetheless, I saw the word Spain spray painted somewhere on a train, on a bridge. I think it was a bridge. Anyways, I took it as a sign. I guess I'm supposed to go to Spain. I don't know what's there for me, but something is there. So I did. And I had gotten feedback somewhere, maybe in the movie, that said not to get immersed in music and stuff like that. So I didn't wear earbuds most of the time, unless maybe they were just to give myself quiet, but I wasn't listening to music most of the time. I don't recall any of the time, actually. And I just walked and connected with nature. And it was really beautiful. And I'm going to back up for a minute, because I started my journey in Paris. I first went, I was ready to go, but the weather wasn't ready for me yet. It was still too cold. So I decided I would go to Paris first. And when I got to Paris, I had even more stuff compile on me, besides the fact that I was weaning my body from all of these medicines. When I got to Paris and I got checked in to the hostel, I believe, or maybe before that, I figured out that there was an insurance premium that came out of my checking account that I wasn't expecting. And I don't know if I had just forgotten about it or what, but all of a sudden I was down to dollars in my account, and I hadn't even made it to Spain. And I didn't know how I could get back to America. And I was like, well, what do I do now? And I went into I got real depressed. I spent a few days in Paris just barely dragging myself out of bed. I didn't know what I would do. I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I'm in this foreign country now, and I have no way to get home. And I've pissed off all my family, and no one will want to come get me. I mean, I was distraught. And I lay there trying to figure out how I would have next meals, and the true understanding of what it means to be homeless. And I understood loud and clear. And I don't know, somehow I made it through that. I heard it hailing outside. And I went and I looked out the window, and these little pellets of hail were hitting the canopy out this window of the hostel in Paris. And I heard in my mind, Hail Mary, she got out of bed. And I knew I had to do this damn thing. I had to go to Spain and figure it out. I mean, how was I getting back to America, you know? And so I did. I lived on a few dollars a day in Paris, just going for a light snack and a tea in a cafe somewhere. And then getting the transportation I needed to get to Spain. And I got started. And that very first night in the hike, or day in the hike rather, you start early in the morning. I hiked all day, and it turned to snow on mountainsides, and there was like no end in sight. No benches for rest, nothing. And I started to wonder if I would make it out of those woods that night. I wondered if that was my end, you know, because I would freeze to death out there. It was cold, and I didn't have a blanket or a tent. And I begged God on my way up the snow mountain to tell me the sins I was paying for. And I sat along the path, just on the ground, any spot I could find without a little bit of snow. Kicked my feet up for a little bit, and I would need to rest. But as it was getting later, and there was no Google Maps or anything like that, as it was getting later, and I knew I had to find the next town, wherever it was, for shelter and warmth and maybe a meal. I started walking and trying to walk faster. And I said, God, send me an angel. And he did send me an angel. Maybe I was listening to music then, and I heard the song Send Me an Angel. I don't think so. I think I heard the music in my body, you know. But either way, this girl came hiking in shoes and heels. She said she was determined to do the whole thing in those heels. And I was like, if this girl can do it in heels, I can do it. I can do it. I can do this. She took my picture. I wished I would have taken hers, and I didn't. But she took my picture. And then I got to hiking again. And just when I was giving up and getting worried, there was a church at the top of the hill, a parking lot with a church, and just on the other side of that church was the road that went down into the town where the hostel was. And I was like, I made it. I made it. I made it out of those woods alive. And I made it the first day of this hike. I did this. I was so proud of myself. My hips were so sore. And I woke up that next morning and they were kicking people out, like, you can't stay here. And my body was hurting. And I thought, oh, I gotta walk again. Send me an angel. I had breakfast, and when I came out of breakfast, there was this man there. And he said, are you waiting on the bus? I said, what bus? Like, excited there was some other form of transportation out here besides these legs only. And he was like, yeah, there's a bus to the next town. He hurt himself, and he wasn't gonna walk that next day, so he was just gonna go to the town over and rest. And I was like, oh, that sounds delightful, I'll join you. And he ended up being a dear friend to me on the rest of the journey. And his kindness to take me in. I was going to stay in the bunkhouse hostels because it was a lot cheaper to stay in a room with 8 or 10 or 12 people, or 30, 80, depending on how big it is. And I was down to dollars. But he wanted smaller, more private rooms, so he would get rooms of 2 and cover my costs. And so I stayed for free from the kindness of this stranger I had never met. And in the same hostels, but you know, they usually have room with the bigger bunkhouse and then smaller rooms. And so we would have smaller rooms, and every once in a while in a bigger town get a hotel and have a day of rest or something. But I'm so thankful for that man on my journey, because my mind was distraught, really, of everything. I guess weaning off of all of that medicine, and then questioning my life, everything I'd ever done, what sins and what beauty and what grace, and who I was in God's eyes. And I had to pick myself up and dust myself off every day and walk from town to town. And these beautiful little towns in Spain with these little cafes where people would get tea and lunch and coffee and maybe a beer. And they would just talk about life, whatever came. up. Got to know people. It was lovely. These towns of people were used to travelers passing by, everyone with a different story, a different walk of life, a different thing weighing them down, burden that they're trying to let go of. Each day I think got a little easier. I loved taking pictures of the beauty all around me. I mean, it was majestic. It was so beautiful. Even the cows, like I would look at the cows and I would think everything that they do to feed the world, and they just stand there eating a little grass and just stand there, and they're happy. Look how happy they are, you know? And I would look at the plants and how beautiful they would blossom. And sometimes when I wouldn't know what the name of it was, I would ask Spirit and the name would come to me. It was magical. It was so magical. I told Lauren, I'm like, look at this. I didn't know what this plant was. I asked Spirit and I looked it up. And the picture matched. It was so magical. And I would sit in cafes to order and languages would come through. Like I can speak, I can count in Spanish, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, but I have to do it in order. If someone says ocho in the middle, I don't know it's 8. I do now, but I didn't. And I was in that cafe and I had these numbers come through to me in Spanish, so I had to look up which numbers they were, and then I was looking up, well, what do those numbers mean to me in this situation? But it was so strange that language was just kind of coming through to me. Vermos came through to me one day, or Vermos? I think that was the word. I'll have to think back or look back in my journal now. But it was appropriate. I looked it up and it made sense for the situation that I was in. I went, oh, all right. So that was kind of fun. Yeah, and seeing the little pop-ups along the way and people just trying to make it. And this guitar player I met on the journey, apparently he'd been there for 3 years. He lost his love 3 years ago and he just kept walking that path. Can you imagine? That was his daily life. Yet he was singing to passerbys and entertaining us, and he was so beautiful. You know, that walk gifted me so much healing, and still does. Long after I'm back and into society again, I think of those days on that trail and the gift that they gave me of reflection and its importance in our lives, and that we should be looking in the mirror every day and examining our behaviors and ourselves and our plan and our purpose and our passion, that should be every day, not just once in a lifetime. When we don't know what else to do, right? I passed a slug at some point on that journey. I took a picture of it. And then I found this piece in a store after I got back. And it really kind of symbolizes that that journey for me. It's transformative. You find your magic in it. Your true magic is just a slow process to discover it again. Hidden away in all of the bad habits that you took on, and the bad advice and the medications and the choices and all that stuff. And as you unwrap the Band-Aid of yourself, you start to feel your wings fluttering again, and you've got your magic back. And it's truly, you feel like a diamond in God's garden globe. You feel your ability to withstand pressure beyond what you could have imagined, and come out still strong, stronger than before, more solidified, a true diamond in the dirts of heaven, earth, life experience. That's what I gained from Spain. It was magical. Truly magical. And it keeps unfolding in my life. Day by day, it stays with you. Peace, love, and happiness always. Heather here.